Hello and welcome back to my channel. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Melissa. I am a current Peace Corps volunteer serving in the Dominican Republic. Today I am coming at you guys with a question and answer. I have had a flood of people come in to my social media accounts asking me a ton of Peace Corps questions, so I figured why not answer them all for you guys today. So I have my list right here. I am gonna go ahead and get started. I want to go ahead and say thank you guys for tuning in and listening to this video. I hope the questions were helpful. If you have questions that you would like to be answered in the future, go ahead and drop them down in the comments. Don't forget to give it a big ass thumbs up and subscribe, like it, share it with your friends, because we know we all love Peace Corps. Woo, woo. The first one. How did you decide on the specific program since you can only apply for one? So guys, a little bit about my background first. I graduated from the University of North Carolina, Wilmington with 2 degrees, one in Spanish and one in International Studies with a concentration in Latin America. My Spanish when I graduated was not great, and I knew that after Peace Corps or in the future I wanted to work an immigration position and I wanted stronger Spanish, so I knew I wanted to go to a Latin speaking country. I started there. If you go to the Peace Corps website, you can go to, I think it's like search country, I think it's called search countries at the top. You click on that, it gives you a map with all of the regions, and then from there you can click around to countries that you might be interested in serving at. When you click on each country, it gives you all of the different programs that are currently available to apply for. So that's really what I did. I went through all of the South American countries and all throughout Central America, the Caribbean. I was in between teaching English as a second language, or I found, because I wanted to better my Spanish, I didn't want to speak a whole lot of English, so I went ahead and chose the Dominican Republic to be a primary literacy promoter. For those of you that don't know, Peace Corps Dominican Republic is the only country that has a literacy program for the native language that they actually speak. So I wanted to do that. Here I am now. Tips for the application process. So my biggest tips that I tell everyone that asks me this is to prepare as much as you can. When I was applying, I went thoroughly through everything. When I wrote the essays, I had friends check it, connect with a regional recruiter. Every region of the country has a recruiter. You can also look that up on the Peace Corps website. So I talked to my regional recruiter, and every time I was out and about, whether it be at a bar drinking, hanging out with friends, meeting new people, at the grocery store, waiting in line to check out, I was always bringing up Peace Corps, and you would be really surprised at how many people know somebody or they were a returned Peace Corps volunteer. So I was able to talk to a lot of people that way. I got connected, and it was a question that I got asked during my interview for Peace Corps is whether or not I had connected with other Peace Corps volunteers, current or return, or if I had gotten in contact with my recruiter. So that is the biggest tip I can give you guys. How much Spanish do you have to have before coming to country? So guys, like I said before, my Spanish was not good when I got out of college, and I had studied for, 4 years in the university. I also studied abroad in Chile for 6 months back as a study abroad program. I spoke a lot of English there, so unfortunately it improved, but not as much as I would have wanted. So when you get into country, they give you a little 5-minute interview to see what your language set is at, and they give you a number from 1 being the lowest, 10 being native speaker. Honestly, in my cohort, the group that came in with me, we had people that were 2s that had like very basic Spanish all the way through fluent speakers. So Peace Corps, they're not, obviously they want people that can speak the language, but what they want more so than someone that can speak the language is someone that's passionate about living abroad and making a change in another community. Someone that is willing to learn, willing to struggle, willing to create memories in another country. So if you have a burning passion to serve, living abroad for 2 years, because it's a big commitment. that is what Peace Corps is looking for. Not only that, but they're looking for heart. So, I mean, yes, a beautiful resume looks awesome for Peace Corps, but they want heart. They want people that are gonna come and stay for 2 years. So if you can prove to Peace Corps that you're passionate about living in another country for 2 years, you are well on your way. Next, how do I know what clothes to wear or to bring to work in a Peace Corps country? So I can't speak for everyone. I can only speak for education volunteers living in the Dominican Republic. And even then it varies from school to school. Some schools like to dress up more professionally. Some have a little bit more of a laid back atmosphere. So the best thing I can tell you is to just bring a nice few blouses that cover the shoulder, preferably button up, they really like that, and a few nice dress pants. And then bring some closed-toed shoes. I use like little booties that work perfectly. I can wear them out if I want to go get a drink, or if I like want to go to school. Like they're just perfect for all the time, every day kind of shoes. So that is all the questions that I have for pre-service. Now I'm going to get into the good juicy stuff about what happens while you're in country. Are there ways your service has been better or worse than your expectations? So this is a big one. I had to think about this for a minute, and it just kind of occurred to me that every aspect of my Peace Corps service so far, I feel so incredibly lucky. I have always had really, really good host families. Because we switched and I had community-based training, my host family wasn't the absolute best. I don't think we really connected that much, but that could have been different for other Peace Corps volunteers if they had stayed with this host family. So I always had really good host families. I haven't gotten like an amoeba or any type of parasite or really, really bad illness. I got food poisoning, like twice in a whole year, which is awesome. I live in the perfect community. I have a beautiful house that's fully furnished. I have air conditioning. I work at a school where everyone's super excited and willing to hear my ideas and implement new things. So in that way, I feel just over the moon blessed with my Peace Corps service so far. And hopefully this next year will be just as exciting as this past year has been. So nothing crazy or dissatisfying that happened to me so far that I was expecting. I guess you could say I wasn't expecting to live in such a nice place. I wasn't expecting for everything to just fall into my lap so perfectly like this. But then again, I worked really, really hard to be here. So, it is what it is. Next. Things you wished you would have known about before coming that you can't know through the internet or research. Yeah, so I think the biggest thing for me, and this would be different for every person, but for me personally, my whole family really loves to travel. My sister, like none of us, it's myself, my sister, and then my parents, and then all my extended family live up in New York. My sister lives in a different state. My mom's a travel nurse. I'm always going to different countries. So we were really a travel-oriented family, and I love them. But I wasn't expecting to miss them as much as I actually do. I talk to my family every day. Thankfully, I have very good internet service, so I'm able to talk to them a lot. But that was not something I was expecting. And I guess for me, I've been really working on loving and living in the moment, because I have such a unique, incredible experience here in Peace Corps that sometimes that gets blocked by my bouts of missing home and like what I could be doing in the US or whatever. So I've been really trying to like live in the moment and really strengthen all of my relationships here. So that's been really cool. Next. Are you by yourself completely, or are there other Peace Corps volunteers in your site or near you? So when I first came to my site, I was the only volunteer in my community, but there are other Peace Corps volunteers that are around my community. And then just recently I had another volunteer come and live with me. Well, not with me, but in the same community. She was a youth volunteer. And then I also have a Peace Corps volunteer leader also living in my community. So I'm not alone. At first I really didn't want a site mate is what we call them, but after getting them, and I absolutely love them, I love being close to other people. I just thought at first I really wanted like my own experience, my own people, and I didn't want to talk to anyone else or whatever, but it ended up, it's so much better to have like sometimes when you need someone to talk to that is from your own country that can relate to you, it's really nice to have another volunteer around, so that's cool. Experience as a woman. Do you feel safe, or are there other precautions that you take? So obviously, yes, being a woman or just being a foreigner in general in another country, you're gonna wanna take precautions, which Peace Corps did a really good job of teaching us before we came into sight. I also had experience living abroad before I came here when I lived in Chile for 6 months. So I mean, when I'm in sight, I feel completely safe. Everyone in town, or mostly everyone in town, at least in my area, they all know me. So I feel very safe walking around. And even at night, I don't typically do it often, but sometimes when it gets a little later, like 8 or 9, I won't really go out past that unless I have someone with me. I always feel extremely safe. And there's still kids like running around in the street and stuff. And now if I'm traveling to an area that people don't know me, or if I'm traveling in the capital, then I always make sure to split up my money. I take extra precautions to make sure that I'm safe. I take Ubers, you know exactly where you're going, you have your directions out, like whatever you need to always prepare ahead of time for that. So that's what I do. Let's see what else we got going on here. How did you find your house? So the house I'm living in right now, this is my host family's house. I got really lucky with this. We had this huge party when I was still living with her. At least in the Dominican Republic, you are required to live with your host family for at least 4 months into your site to help with integration, and then after that you can move out. My host family had this house after the party that they had while I was still in training. My host mom told me that I could rent it, so I'm now renting it, fully furnished, so that's how that happened, kind of fell in my lap, which was really nice. Other Peace Corps volunteers that don't have the same situation, when you're integrated and you know people and your Spanish is getting good, or if you already have good Spanish, you just start talking to people and you ask around, like, who has a house that's available, can I rent it, and then you get into all the logistics that way, so that's really cool. And then everyone does pay rent. This was another question. Peace Corps volunteers get a living stipend, so I get paid once a month, and it's typically just enough to live comfortably. Peace Corps wants us as volunteers to live like the people in our community. So I have enough to pay my rent, to buy food, my electricity, and then they give us a little bit of money for fun, or to travel. Sometimes people get sick, we have to call the Peace Corps medical office, and then they tell us to go buy things, and then we end up getting like reimbursements for that. So it's always nice to have a little bit of extra money on hand as well. Last question. One thing you failed at during service, and how did you deal with it? So I wouldn't really say I failed at anything during service. It's just a very slow process. So making changes at a school, because it's really hard when you go into a school and you're working with people that have been doing their job for 20 plus years, and then you have someone new from another country that's coming in and saying, this is what you need to do here and here and here, and for them to just like change everything on a whim is kind of hard. So I think for me, I didn't fail at it, but working at not just telling people what to do, even though we had good relationships, but really listening to what they want to do, and then trying to figure out how I can fit what they like to do and putting it into what I had to share to kind of make it sustainable, because Peace Corps is all about sustainable change. So that is all of the questions. I hope everyone has a great day. I love you guys all. Stay tuned for next week's video. Bye.